Hello dear students, and welcome to the new week of classes. This week we're talking about social groups and organizations. So this is chapter 6 or 7, I'm not sure. And this week's topic closely resonates with what we did last week. And if you remember, last week we were talking about social structures and the types of social interaction. Alright, so let's begin. This video lecture shouldn't be very long, because the chapter in the textbook is much shorter than all the previous chapters you have read. And very important note to make here is what do and how do sociologists approach the study of the social groups. Now, groups in the way that we understand them are not the same as the way that sociologists understand the groups. Now, groups of people may look like the crowd of people, a bunch of people in the class, bunch of people, standing somewhere on the square, a bunch of people standing in the line to some shop or whatever. That doesn't really constitute a social group. It's just a gathering of people, all right? That's how the common sense dictates us what the social groups are. But sociologists approach the social groups from a different perspective, from a much more scientific angle. And in that sense, social groups are the groups of people with common characteristics. These people have some, common norms, common values, common beliefs. They have common goals, probably. For instance, if you take, as an example, the student community of KIMAP, then the whole student community of KIMAP would constitute a social group, right? It's a big social group. All the students know that they're studying at KIMAP. All of the students, they are familiar with the mission of the university. They're familiar with the KIMAP's norms and values. Right? Within the KIMAP student community, there may be even smaller social groups, such as various student organizations. All right? Well, you know better than me the sort of organizations that exist at KIMAP. Now, these organizations have their own values and norms that are separate, that are so much different from the widely accepted, from the widely shared norms of the KIMAP community. All right? So, whenever you're thinking of social groups from the sociological perspective, you must always think of these patterns of interaction, of these norms and values that shape the nature of these social groups. Reading from these slides, you can see that social groups are a relatively small number of people who interact with one another over a time. In addition to that, these social groups, as I have already mentioned, they establish patterns of interaction, a group identity, rules or norms governing the behavior of the people, constituting that social group. Now, another very important distinction, another very important feature of the social groups is that they can be distinguished by the in-groups and by the out-groups. The emphasis on group identity, please read it on the slide, leads to the distinction between the in-groups and the out-groups. You see, the emphasis on the group identity. So if you are a member of the KIMAP student community, then probably other KIMAP students would be the members of the same group, the same KIMAP student community group. In other words, they are all the members of the in-group. You are also the in-group of the KIMAP student community. But students of other universities, they are the out-groups. All right, they are the out-groups according to the students of KIMAP. According to the students of Agrarian University, the Kazgu University, students of KIMAP would be the outgroups, okay? So this is how you relate personally to the members of the group which you belong to. So everyone in the group you belong to will be your in-groups, and everyone who doesn't share the same identity of your group will be your outgroup. An in-group is one that members are involved in and with which they identify, while the outgroups is one to which the outsiders belong. So everyone else outside of KIMAP is the outgroup. The importance of this distinction is the tendency for people to believe in the rightness and desirability of the in-groups and to reject the ways of life of the outgroup members. Now, American sociologist Sumner was interested in why do some people, believe and they defend the values of the in-group members. Well, this is because we usually tend to defend the interests, we usually tend to stand up for the interests of the in-groups for obvious reasons, right? We usually tend to defend the members of the in-group if they do something wrong. We would try to justify their actions by saying that, well, probably he was in bad mood, probably he didn't know that this this law was there, probably, in other words, they would be justifying the failures of the members of the in-groups, okay, because they are themselves the members of this in-group. However, if somebody from the out-group does something bad, then what the in-group members would do, they would try to attack that person as much as they can. They wouldn't be interested in defending the interests of the people who don't belong to the in-group, right? So it is belonging to the in-groups and the out-group that explains human behavior. Why sometimes we defend certain categories of people and sometimes we try to attack people who don't share the same features as we do with the people of the in-group members, all right? Next important distinction was made by Cooley in 1909, who was talking about the primary groups and the secondary groups. Now, this concept was invented by Cooley in order to describe groups characterized by intimate face-to-face association and cooperation. Primary groups are typically small and close-knit. The relationship among the members are very personal. They strongly identify with each other as well as with the group as a whole. So you say everyone at KIMAP would probably be your primary group. You know everybody there, more or less. You know that they're all, students of KIMAP. They all have the same norms and values. They're familiar with the KIMAP culture and so on and so forth. So they would be your primary group. However, the students of Turan University, the students of American University in Kazakhstan, for instance, right? They have their own values and norms, which are radically different from those accepted at KIMAP. So in that sense, they would be your secondary group. Why? Why would they be your secondary groups? Because they are also students. You say, but the students of KIMAP, they're much closer to you because you may know them better, because they might understand your behavior much better than the students of American University or Turan University, who are students as well, but they're not as closely related to you as a student of KIMAP. Another example of the primary and the secondary group would be to think of you guys taking the sociology course at KIMAP. Everyone in your class would probably be the members of your primary group. All of you, know each other better than you would normally know somebody who is taking some other course at KIMAP. So in that sense, students of sociology are your primary groups. Students of KIMAP would be your secondary group members. The examples of the primary groups are family, because you know everyone in the family, even the extended family, you know people's habits, you know their likes and dislikes. You have some very intimate familiarity with these people, as well as the groups, the play groups of children, community groups, if you all live, the inhabitants of some flat, they would know each other very well. They would see each other every day, they would greet each other every day. They would be the members of the primary group. But the inhabitants of the apartment, the apartmental building opposite yours would be your secondary groups, because you all live on the same street, but you don't know them as better as the people who live in your flat, in your apartmental building. Secondary groups, I already mentioned these, are typically large and very impersonal. So there is no face-to-face contact, there is no verbal communication between the people. This is not usually the case. Members' ties to secondary group are typically weaker than the ties of the primary group. This is what I've already illustrated in the previous examples. They're usually formed for a specific purpose, for example, the labor union or a professional association. So imagine some organization, some company, people working for this company, they would all be members of the secondary group because they don't know every single employee of that company, right? If a company has something like 50 or 100 employees. But the people who work in your department, in one division of that particular company, they might be your primary groups. Why? Correct. Because you know them very well. Because there are only 5 or 10 people. You know each other's, preferences. You know each other's birthdays. You probably would have outings and social events, celebrated together, but not with the employees of the huge company at large. right? So this is the distinction between the primary and the secondary.